in addition to being a guest curator with Exponential this year and an Exponential alumni for the past 2 years, Sanaz Ghajar is an Iranian-American multidisciplinary artist whose work has been described as ambitiously subversive and unapologetically experimental by Time Out New York. She's trying to get her tripod set up. Her writing was recently featured in Theater in Quarantine's Closet Works, presented by the Invisible Dog Arts Center. She's developed work with Prague Film and Theater Center, New York Theater Workshop, Red House Center for Culture and Debate in Bulgaria, BRIC Arts and Media, 3LD Technology and Arts Center, Ikincikat Theatre in Turkey, Goldex Poldex Gallery in Poland, and others. We are so happy to welcome to the conversation a now settled Sanaz. Hi, Sanaz.
Hello. It's unstable, but available for, it's here.
Okay.
It may fall.
Yeah, you've all been warned.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. I believe it or not, haven't been getting up this early during quarantine. So it was nice to have like a morning.
Oh, yeah?
How was your morning?
It was good. Oh, there it goes. I did some yoga, which was very nice. And here, okay, I think I figured it out. What? All right. Okay. So I did some yoga and made some coffee, cried, you know. No, it's fine.
You okay?
It's part of it.
Okay.
And, and then here I am, I guess. The coffee's been useful.
Good. Well, to get started, I'd like to pay you a compliment, Sanaz. And that is that you have such wide, eclectic Catholic taste and aesthetic. When I go to see your shows, of the projects I've seen you led, I've seen Drunkfish, Ocean Rant on video. We saw Danger Signals, Bloodshot, Iranian Girlfriend, Housework, and most recently the videos you sent me for Red Wednesday and Virtuous People. And I've now seen you work in a variety of styles and media and on plays you write and plays by other people. And I always come away from your work impressed and in a stimulated and curious headspace. And that's where the similarities I see kind of end. I can see through lines to your work, but they seem to transform. You're a very transformative artist. So I wonder if you could talk about like where that comes from. Have you always been interested in changing it up, in transforming, or did that come later?
Yes. Okay. So I don't really change so much as the people that I work with do. And so actually it's the people who are involved in each project that really speak to the differences that you see. I know that I'm always interested in working with different groups, as many groups as possible. And I know that like I get bored easily. So like those sort of things within myself ultimately lead me to cultivating a diverse creative group. I also think that like I run my rehearsal room like a philosophical salon, or
like Gertrude Stein or something.
Yeah, or like a cafe meets a gym. And so it's like it's rigorous and open, and I have a vision, but it's sort of a moving target. And so there's like some things that tie my work together that I see in terms of theme or in terms of style, and sort of a focus on design, always being in conversation with the acting for the performance. And I think the sort of the diversity of the material and the forms that takes place, like mediums within which that sort of how that transfers has to do with both like the people that I'm working with from a theoretical perspective, but also from a formal perspective. Like I'm like, I want to know what it means to work with a DP. So like, let's do that. But yeah, it's the people.
Oh, that's great. It's always the people. We always find it in other people. I'm so glad we found you a few years ago to enrich our lives at Exponential. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It reminds me, and forgive me for our audience members, Sanaz may have seen these questions before we began, but I have a follow-up question that you don't know about, Sanaz, which is,
I knew that was going to be a moment too. I was like, I know he's going to say that I knew the questions, and I know he's going to like throw in a surprise one.
You can see me. You can see straight through me. But one of your collaborators is your partner, Dave. And I was going through your website and noticed that you had worked together early on in your output. So when did that start, and what's Dave's background? And maybe you could introduce him for us.
Dave and I went to college together, and he actually inspired me in many ways to approach design and specifically projections. I was in his fourth year project as a peacock, and his like use and interest in technology was really inspiring, and also spoke to something that I was interested in terms of the sort of the cross talk between film and theater. And so he graduated a year ahead of me, but I went ahead and sort of took what I learned from working with him and started working on it in my own final project, and that's how projections came to be a thing that I got interested in. And then when we graduated, we just always worked together in some way, shape, or form. I think I directed a show that he wrote. Mostly, though, he was my media designer. Either him or his company with Kate Freer, which was Imaginary Media. And the work that they did was really amazing. And anytime that I could like find a way to integrate their brains into the work that I was doing, I was like, there. And so we were friends and collaborators before we were ever romantically involved. And now I think like we find ways of trying to figure out like how to work with each other. And actually he has directed me now in a piece that I did last year at Exponential Festival Talkback. And there's only like 2 people in the world who can direct me without me just like completely revolting. He's one of them. Andrew Scoville's one of them. There's like maybe
there you go.
4. I have to find them.
That's fun. The director's directed. That's great. Well, thanks for fielding that. Let's see. So something you wrote. Oh no, this is the wrongness question. So I saw Drunk Fish Ocean Rant on video from the Prelude Festival, and it has the honor of being one of the first shows I saw where I thought like, this is wrong, like you can't do that, and by which I mean to say Haruna's stereotypical accent and performance style. And now I see the connection between the investigation into identity that was present in that work and continues into something like Suicide Forest. But I didn't have the words for that then, and I was just like scandalized. So I'm interested in wrongness right now, and how to be wrong and make it a welcoming thing, or how to be wrong and not violate a social contract, or how to violate very specific contracts. Looking back on your hi Will Garrett, waving. Looking back on your formative theater going experiences, do you remember any shows where you felt like that, where you felt like either they're not allowed to do that, or, you know, or in hindsight, you said, aha, that's where I learned how to do this.
Yeah. Well, I love you too, Will. I don't think that I would call it wrong. And
Fair.
I don't necessarily use the term violate.
Yeah.
But, and I think in terms of what Haruna was doing, talking to them would probably be like the best way to truly understand it.
Yeah.
And I think that the work that I did with Haruna, what we actually sort of both were really interested in was that uncomfortable thing that you can create with an audience. And so I would talk about it as discomfort. And
discomfort. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
And also
not wrong.
And also a subverting. And simultaneously with that discomfort and with that subversion, I'm interested in surprise and delight and producing like the unexpected. I read something somewhere that that basically every time you learn something new, or every time a baby learns something new, there's like this dopamine rush that happens in the brain that makes you feel good. And I think that the same thing can happen on stage when an audience sees something that they've never seen before. And so the shows that have done that for me specifically, there's two that immediately come to mind. One is Fuerza Bruta. And that Argentinian, I think, originally piece, just like, it's so like, there's a big audience, and then like suddenly out of nowhere, a treadmill with a man walking comes through them. And then from another side, there's like a big, sort of structure and all of these people dancing, and it rolls on. And the way that it sort of, invaded my idea of how the audience and the performers could interact as a show went on, and then all of a sudden I was looking up, and from above me there was a pool coming down with swimmers in it, you know, just like this idea of like the whole space being a playground. That was huge. And then the other piece was Daniel Kramer did a Wojciech back in, I can't tell you when, it'll date me too much, but at St. Anne's Warehouse in the early, I think it was like 2006. And at the moment where there was this moment where peas rained from the ceiling, and there's no like, it was, I think the moment, I don't want to ruin it, so go read Wojciech, but the moment was related to an event in the play, and it had a huge emotional reaction, and the raining peas gave me a guttural reaction and related me to also the dramaturgy of or the script and what was happening in that moment. And there was this like collision between design and script that was incredible. And to be able to create like that feeling on stage in my heart all at the same time, that moment kind of took my breath away. And I've always consistently tried to recreate things in that way. And then the last artist in general who's incredible in this way was Pina Bausch. And the ways that she mixed text and movement, dance, but also more human movement. The ways that she did that was so unexpected. When I went into BAM to see a dance show and left thinking I had just had like a more like delightful and like experience than I have ever had in a dance show, with a story involved, but that the story was like cumulative and not necessarily linear. I don't know if I've answered your question. But
no, of course. Those are formative experiences. And it sounds like, whereas I might call it wrongness, like the thing that drives you as a young theater mind, the thing that drew you was surprise, and the thing that drew you was the dopamine rush. I love that. That's cool. Thank you for sharing. So something you wrote recently I found really inspiring. You know, that Medium article had just come out saying like no one's allowed to do live theater, um, or no one's allowed to do digital theater. And you said, I don't know if it was in response or if it was just in the air, but that art is the job, theater was the medium, or something like that. And you've made episodic stuff, you've made music videos, you've made things where you write the text, things where you direct the text that other people have written, you made film, you've now made a few digital performances. So tell me about this as an ethos. Like, where did that start?
Robert Rauschenberg. That's my first response. But I guess it's more than that. Okay, we'll get back to Robert Rauschenberg. One,
okay.
It's partially out of boredom, and partially out of survival, in the sense that I can't help but make work, and when I don't make work, I get really sad. And the need to express myself in a artistic language is so strong that I will do it however I can. Theater comes most naturally to me, but it's not the only medium that interests me. And when theater is not available, either because like no one's hiring me, or because of a global pandemic, or because I'm bored, that's an opportunity for me to challenge myself in a new medium, in order to like learn what it can offer. And ultimately, that I think is part of my job, is to, as an artist, is to continue to express and communicate to other people at any moment, at any time. And Robert Rauschenberg I love because he has this quote that was in an interview that he did at some point, where he talks about how he doesn't, I'm gonna butcher the quote, so I'm not even gonna pretend like this is exactly what his words were, but essentially his work was not necessarily a protest, but it was an offer of another way of being. And so this idea of like showing another way of seeing the world, another perspective, was interesting to him. And he did it in so many different ways in his own work. He did these combines and collage paintings, and he also like got in a truck with his, I could be wrong about this too, but I think he like got in his truck with like a friend of his and like took some paint and put it on a tire, and then put the tire over canvas, and like that was the piece. And then he was also like making work with Merce Cunningham and John Cage, and like, you know, can you say that one person was the creator of the work? I'm not sure. Like, and it spanned like sound and performance and dance and visual. Like these things were all working with and within each other. And it's his work and his work with those people, John Cage in particular, sort of inspires me constantly to sort of reinvestigate what my formal tools are and how I can expand and reassess and play with them. So it's an experiment in a way.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about those, like Bob Rauschenberg, and also just the Judson kind of scene. I went and saw that thing at MoMA, was it last year maybe? And it was like, I know it's easy to look back and mythologize or whatever, but there was something, I was like, this is so great that all these people felt free, or enough of these people felt free to work across discipline, you know, and like some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think like there's like an interesting way that it was it was partially just their attitudes. Like you know, Rauschenberg says something about you have to have trouble with something. Like sometimes you have trouble with money. Like you're always going to have trouble with something. And you know, he was like making work with cardboard on the street. You know, like it was everything was an investigation, and money wasn't the number one thing at the like sort of standing in their way, even though sometimes it was. And I think that comes from like, there's a lot of things that, you know, we could say were like, that comes from a place of privilege, or it comes from like having all of these other things that they, you know, we don't have to struggle with. And yeah, I could like spend some time thinking about that, but but instead I'm just gonna like pick some cardboard off the street and like make something, you know. Like I think that's like probably the best use of my time.
Oh, I love that. I think that's where we'll end today.
Yeah.
I back you up, Sanaz. So like yogi recess, in the words of Jonathan Van Ness, is there anything we missed that you want to do or say? Is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you'd like to, you know, hold court on for a minute or so? Now's your time.
I mean, okay, so I mean, there's things that I'd like to plug, and I'll do that really quickly at the end. But I will say, in terms of, this is an exciting moment because I didn't think of this, but just like, to people out there, make work. Like whatever medium most inspires you, whether you know how to do it well or you don't know how to do it well, it doesn't matter, because like, what is well, but this is an amazing time to generate and process and create. And I really encourage people to either do it on their own, get on Zoom and do it with other people, like, but figure out like what is itching, and start to like sort of explore that, and just sort of find time every day to devote to your artistic practice or your writing practice or whatever that is, that creative output sort of thing. Find like 30 minutes a day to do something. Whether or not you put it on social media right now doesn't matter, but like, do it for yourself, because it's the process of generating that actually like makes me feel alive, at least. In terms of things that are coming up and that I want to plug, I will say that there's the Middle Eastern and North African Theater Festival at LaGuardia Performing Arts Center. It's happening October 12th through 17th. I recommend you check out the LPAC website and go to as many of those digital performances as possible. Iranian Girlfriend will have a little stint in it. And then in November, this really cool thing is happening called Homeward Bound, presented by Weekly, which is a festival of, by, and for everyone that's stuck inside. They've created this like virtual space. It's a virtual art gallery opening that's happening on November 13th. And I'll be sending out information about it too. People should submit. They're still taking submissions from performance and visual art through the end of the month. And then enter Porter, a poor adaptation of Macbeth about being drunk and in love, is a piece that's going to be an experimental film that's going to happen at the Exponential Festival this year, which I'm super thrilled about. I can't wait. And it's written by Jess Almacy and composed by Chad Rains, and has a dope cast that I'm not going to tell right now. It's still in the form, but it's shaping up to be amazing. Yeah, get out there, y'all.
That's great. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Exponential Festival in general, I love you. And there's no other festival that lets me be myself the way that you do. So
we love you back, Sanaz. Thank you for spending some time this morning with us. And
great background, by the way. That's a good background.
Thank you. This is my girlfriend's, piece of fabric. It's beautiful. So thank you so much, Sanaz. I'll quickly say to anyone who's listening, the Exponential Festival is fundraising right now through the link in our bio. We're raising money to do something new, which is to pay our artists a stipend to adapt their work to a digital media. We have a full month of live or a full month of video work by live and performance and theater artists, dance artists. It's going to be really cool. So you can find more information at the exponentialfestival.org. And thanks for tuning in.